Hey guys, this video is on how to feed your puppy, and it's 3 different times. If you're new and your pup has no eagerness to get to the bowl, just watch the first one, but if there's some real excitement there, the whole video gives many tips along with mistakes that I make and what to do when they happen. So make sure you tune in for the whole thing if your puppy is showing the least bit of over-eagerness when it comes to their food bowl.
Hi, I'm Bethany from Dogger Size Dog Training, and I'm here with Winnie, and she charges for her food bowl, gobbles it all up. She gets a little tense sometimes about it, so those are all just signs that she could have some pretty serious problems in the future with food. So we just want to get rid of that, okay? So we're going to really slow her down. First of all, I have one of the slow feeder bowls. I don't know if you can see it. You can get them on Amazon. You can go to Petco and get them if you want. There's all different types. She can handle this one, which is a pretty elaborate one. She can only get food out by using her tongue. So it slows her down, which is better for digestion, especially if you're only feeding dry food, because the dry food fills up with water and can expand in their stomach so fast they throw up. So just something to keep in mind. She is already very good with place, sit, and down for her age and for how long she's been doing it. She's pretty consistent with it. So what I would suggest when you're starting this, you need to just have a really strong sit, okay? You don't have to have anything else. You don't have to use the placemat, but she has to have a really strong sit. Now the reason I'm using the mat is because it really helps her understand to stay in one spot when it comes to anything fearful or exciting or anything. So just me going to the food bag and getting the food used to cause this big uproar, right? And she just goes nuts at the sound of the food bag and the sound of the food. Well, by teaching a really strong place command, that keeps her at bay. And it's actually best if you start with 2 people. So one person can have the dog in place and reinforce it, and then the other person get the food. You can learn all of those things on my playlist. If you have an adult dog, there's place, sit down for adults as well as for puppies, okay? So, so you can definitely start with that. But if you have a sit, honestly, that's good enough to start with, to at least start to slow them down and not charge for the food. Now, just to make this harder, I'm going to release her from place and have her kind of moving around, probably like a lot of a lot of dogs are whenever you start this process. She's only done this process once, so by no means is it gonna be great. Now you can do this process standing up. I just like to do it squatting down, but you can stand up and do it. If I had a larger dog that maybe had a little bit more intensity and I wanted to be a bit more assertive about calming them down, I would stand up, but you certainly don't have to. Also, another thing is that I want you to keep in mind is that you want to divide your food into probably no more than 3 or 4 segments to practice this. There are some dogs that I'll do more in one segment, but there's no reason to make it a really big, long ordeal, especially when you're just starting out, and sometimes it can frustrate the dog. So you can stick just between 3 and 4 segments of food to do this process. So I don't know if you're noticing, but now she's kind of looking off to the side when I'm doing it. That's what I want, because the first few times she was hyper focused on the food. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of just desensitizing her to the excitement aspect of it. So she's doing really good. So what you're gonna see happen is the dog is gonna go for the food bowl, and you're just gonna lift it back up. Even if you only get this far and then you have to go back up, that's fine. You have to work your way down. And you just want them to not be so focused. That way you can put the food bowl down on the ground and they don't get up.
So it's super simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. Up and down until the dog isn't so focused. Start with just a few inches down, and when the dog pops up, you pull the bowl straight up. Wait a second and then repeat. The dog will realize you're pulling the food bowl up when they break the sit. Now getting the bowl on the ground is the hardest part. The noise usually triggers them to pop up. Keep your fingers on it at first, and then just wait until the dog looks away from the bowl to give them the food. But after a few repetitions, you want to wait for eye contact, then you give them the food.
Okay, take it. So what I'm rewarding is eye contact. So as soon as they give me eye contact, instead of releasing them to rush to the food bowl to gobble it all up, I bring it to them. And that's something you're going to want to do for quite some time if you have this type of intensity. So this is good. She's not tensing up. What she will do though is if I would put my finger in, she would go and lick where my finger was immediately. So I don't want you to put a lot of pressure on your dog. You don't have to have your hands in the food. You don't have to touch them like crazy. I would prefer you not. But what you can do is just not back away from the food. Just hang out and don't be intrusive. It builds trust, because if you start messing around and they're already this intense, you could lose trust. They could start to think that you're going to take food away, and it can also speed them up even more. You can absolutely do this process with a bowl and then bring it to them with your hand. That'll slow them down as well and build trust. I like to do that with brand new dogs, especially out of shelter environments. But that's up to you. This is definitely good enough. But my point is, you don't want to do a lot of messing. At the most, what I've done is just put my fingers in the bowl, but not try to do anything, not try to take anything, not pull the bowl away, not mess with the bowl or spin the bowl around, which creates more, more drive. I'm just slowly desensitizing my presence and letting her know that the food's not going anywhere no matter what. Winnie, come here. Sit. Sit. Good girl. So notice I'm not as far from her like I was before. So that's why it's a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging for her. But some of you might even be, a foot or two away and be dealing with that jump forward. What I would say is just start slow and be ready to have to pull up with the bowl. And with bigger dogs, even with her, she nudges down. You might even want to have two hands on the bowl and be going down like this. See how she resets herself back? But if you're going down like this and they do get their nose in, you can you don't pull back, because that'll create them to just move forward. You want to pull up, and it can be difficult with bigger dogs. So it's not a correction, but it is a negative thing. She goes towards the food, and I move the food away from her. Not backwards, because that creates drive, but straight up, okay? So that's why this works, because I'm taking the food away. And I do it so many times and make the noise that it basically bores them and desensitizes them. And they learn that if they back off and look at me, that's when they get the food. Okay, take it. Good girl. Yeah, so we're gonna do it one more time, a little bit different with me standing up for those of you that don't want to squat on the floor, which is totally fine. So I'm gonna test her a bit more. I would suggest you start out probably about a foot from the nose, but I'm just gonna test her a bit more and bring it in. Now the reason I'm doing this is because her nose is following it so far down that I don't trust her. So that was so close to being a mess because I hit my foot. If this had been a normal bowl, some definitely would have spilled out. And if that had happened, you just let it go. The last thing you want to do is try to be like, no, oh, and get involved and pick up food. If that makes sense, I'm glad that happened. It reminded me to say this. If you spill some out of the bowl, if they do get their nose in the bowl, I've had this happen before, especially with bigger dogs. And you try real hard to lift, straight up like you're supposed to, or maybe out a little just so you can get up. It doesn't matter. Their tipping of the bowl might cause some to fly out. You might even drop the bowl because you're not ready for it. Just let it go. The last thing you want to do is get involved and try to stop or pick up or slow them down, because you're going to cause more anxiety and cause them to rush more. So just a little tidbit for you guys, and you don't want to create any competition either. That's why it's also really important, unless your dogs are really well trained, not to have the other dogs around, because you'll definitely make a mistake. It doesn't matter how many times you do this with how many dogs. Something like that can happen and the other dogs get involved, and unless you have amazing control over them, just have them out of the room. Okay, anyway. Okay, take it. Good. Little paws off of it. And so hopefully you can see her piddle paddle of little feet in the beginning. She was so excited. Hopefully you can see how that's kind of worn off just in this short period of time. Once your dog gets really good at this, and maybe he goes through adolescence and they're not having any problems with food related issues, and the intensity has lessened and they have more impulse control, if that happens, then you can absolutely just say, okay, take it, and let them go to the food. Just make sure they're not running even 3 feet towards the food, because that can create more drive. Make sure it's just pretty close to them, a foot to 2 foot. If you see that intensity, that rush to the bowl, and they start to have any issues, you just go back to this. You bring them the food.
If you liked this video and you'd like to see a video of Winnie waiting in place while I prepare food for my dogs and while my dogs eat, there should be a little box right here that you can click on for that. Also, if you like what you see, and maybe you have an older dog or a dog that has food aggression already, or just some beginning signs of it, definitely check out our page. We do have some videos on that just with older dogs. It's the same method, but it is a little different, and there are some other tidbits in there when you're working with dogs that already are showing a little bit more intense signs of some actual aggression rather than just some food intensity. info@doggersizela.com is our email if you'd like to send me some questions, and you can always check out our website, doggersizedogtraining.com. We're in North Hollywood, California.